was the first signing. I mean, literally right when the tampering period opened up, because nobody talked before the tampering period. Remember that, Deke. Everybody waits until it's time to officially open up the phone books, and from there they just were able to get this deal negotiated in like 30 minutes. That's what it sounded like, because everybody follows these rules. So I do like that.
They gave him an offer.
Yeah. And it was like, hey, look, I know I just met you, but don't worry about it. This is the deal. And he was like, all right, I'm good. 30 minutes in, bam, announcement. I was like, yo, that was efficient. Really efficient. Yeah. But in all seriousness, if I remember correctly, the deal was 2 for $14 million with up to $27 million in incentives though as well. For me, man, my initial reaction, I was a little underwhelmed. Just in the simple fact that you had a chance to get a proven franchise quarterback in Deshaun Watson, and we just didn't really have any interest there for whatever reason it was. I just didn't like that, because to me, the messaging that I had interpreted from Kevin Colbert was they're trying to win in the sense of compete for a Super Bowl. And I just personally didn't think that Mitch puts you in the conversation for a Super Bowl. I look at Mitch kind of in the same way of how we view Jimmy G or Kirk Cousins to an extent, or even Baker Mayfield in my eyes, in the sense of those guys are still good players, but it makes your margin of error very tight. And that's the thing that I don't like, because we've seen elite defenses versus elite offenses, and the elite offense wins 9 times out of 10, especially if you got that quarterback in place as well. But as a whole, man, I don't hate the move. You know what I mean? I do think that Mitch, if you're going off the options that were available and you didn't want to go Deshaun Watson, you didn't want to go Jameis Winston, I like Mitch over the Jimmy G situation because of the contract. And I feel like I like Mitch over Mason, even though I'm not 100% sold either way just yet. But, what were your thoughts on this thing, man, when you saw it flash across the screen, man?
I agree with you. I don't think it was something to get crazily excited about. At the same time, I don't think it's a terrible move. This contract isn't that bad. I was hoping it to be a little bit less, but at the same time, a lot of it's incentive based.
Yeah, was
it $7 million a year? It's a little bit more than Mason. So I guess they're giving Mitch the inside track. The numbers speak that way. But yeah, a little bummed out too, because I knew as soon as we signed Mitch, it was like we're out of the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes then. But I will say this, after the Mitch signing, they kind of went off the rails there a little bit. The Trugs deal, I'm like wondering what's going on. We got this random dude, Mason Cole, but I think they made up for it yesterday. It feels like there's a lot more of a plan going on right now, and I feel a lot better going into the draft and the rest of this offseason, because I still think there's some more moves to be made. Mitch, in terms of him versus the other quarterbacks too, I'm 100% with you, because him versus Jimmy G, him versus Cousins, or countless the veterans. I mean, his contract's cheap, and I think he has the potential. If not, he's already better. If not, has the potential to be better. I mean, they're talking about him getting reinvented up in Buffalo, and all the excuses have come out. But this has been even before he was signed with the Steelers. A lot of people think he was like ruined up in Chicago. Now we're just using that as a kind of excuse to make us feel a little bit better about the signing. But I do think that's been true, or that's been thought of around the league just the past year, not even just because we signed him. So I think there's some upside here, man.
And remember when we talked about him initially, because Todd Haley was the one who had brought him up initially. And my response was, I like what Mitch did in Buffalo, but who did I say was his coordinator in Buffalo? Brian Dable. I said, he's more proven. He's shown, what he can do in terms of getting the best out of quarterbacks and actually helping them develop. We've seen that with Josh Allen. Whereas I was like, here we got Matt Canada. It's a little bit different. And that's why for me, man, I was just like, I didn't personally want Mitch to come here if it was still going to be Matt Canada, because I don't think that Mitch looks like how Mitch did last year with Matt Canada versus if he was with Brian Dable. That's why I thought he would end up with the Giants, since, Brian is the head coach over there, and they're still, kind of looking at Daniel Jones and trying to figure out if he's the answer or not. But with that, though, I was just like, man, we really had a shot to get one of the guys, one of those chosen few of franchise caliber quarterbacks. And like I said, for me, man, it was just frustrating to know that we didn't do what it would take. Now, the rest of the moves, I mean, I do agree, and we'll get to those. We're going to spend some time on this Mitch situation. But I do feel like the rest of the moves I kind of like, and I can see the framework of what they're trying to do. But once again, you're still going to be missing the most important piece, and that is the quarterback. So that's why for me, it's just like, man, how do I get crazy excited about it, knowing what that's going to look like, knowing how difficult that's going to be for us to get to where we're truly trying to be at, which is a Super Bowl. And that's why I'm just like, I don't feel like Mitch moves us there. And I understand the whole concept of him being a bridge quarterback, but with bridge quarterbacks, there's no guarantee that you're going to find the answer on the other side of that bridge. Where I've been, you go bridge to another bridge to another bridge to another bridge, and before you know it, you're looking up like, bro, what is going on here? And that's the thing that it's just like, man, you really had a chance to avoid that completely. What was the reason for you not going for it? And to me, I don't want to hear about a possible 6-game suspension for Deshaun Watson when you're talking about 6 games compared to having a franchise caliber quarterback for the next 10 years. Like, that's just kind of my viewpoint on it. Whereas, like, because I've seen that pop up, I was like, man, well, why would you want to bring in Deshaun when you gotta miss him for this amount of time? It's like, dude, do you realize how much longer you're gonna have him after that? And that was the biggest like hang up for me, if that was the reason why they didn't really pursue him.
Yeah, who knows what the reason was. The one thing about Mitch, though, from my standpoint, is there is some verdicts still out there with him. Could he have the Tannehill type of resurgence here in Pittsburgh? Now, what does that mean, though? Because I'm not a big fan of Tannehill. Like, I wouldn't even want Tannehill right now because I don't view him as the franchise guy, the difference maker. But couldn't Trubisky be a little bit better than that? Because actually, if you compare Trubisky's stats to Tannehill, Coward was doing this whole thing. It was really interesting. He was comparing Trubisky like Baker, just a bunch of quarterbacks around the league. I mean, Trubisky's stats are actually comparable to Tannehill, and that was Trubisky up in Chicago.
That's fine.
If you think the verdict's out on Trubisky where it's just over, like you don't think he can improve anymore, then I get your sentiments. I just think there's that little bit of upside still, that 20% chance, like he actually could be a long-term solution for us. So
it sounds like you really believe in Matt Canada as well then. Because the only way that Trubisky...
I don't really believe in him. It's just we gave him 1 year. Let's see what he does. Let's see what he does.
But to me, how does Mitch thrive if Canada isn't thriving as well? We've talked about that with... Remember, that's what we said, the whole self-sabotage and stuff like that. That's all. I'm just like, how am I now just so optimistic about Matt Canada as a offensive coordinator in the NFL? Because now we got Mitch Trubisky and we're going to talk ourselves into it. Oh, remember what he did in Buffalo? It's like, dude... Brian Daboll just got a head coaching job. Brian Daboll has shown that he's an elite offensive coordinator in this league. I was like, just 2 weeks ago, you were talking about the self-sabotage that he did to your boy Seven. And now,
I still agree with that. What can we do now, though?
No,
he's still
here. I'm just saying I don't want to change my perspective solely because we made this move and I got to talk myself into it. I'm still just being a realist about the situation. I don't believe in Matt Canada. That's all. Yeah,
I feel the same way about Canada with Mitch or Mason. I mean, we still got to see what he does with.
No, you're absolutely right, man.
Because I think that would be the case with Mason or Mitch, whoever wins this competition.
And that was the other part.
Because you even hear Mason with his interview saying like, I'm willing to just sit back and let Canada call the plays and figure this all out. Whereas he also brought up with Ben, there was some back and forth there because obviously Ben's been in the league for how long he's had success. So he should get some say, but still it seemed like we were leaning more Canada last year, which I wasn't thrilled with.
A lot more Canada this year, so for better or worse, for better or worse. But when you're thinking Mitch versus Mason, in your eyes, who's the better quarterback
everyone
right now?
thinks the starting job's locked up right now.
Do you feel that way?
No, I don't at all. I really don't. I think it's still competition. I think Haskins is still in the mix. Does it play out that way? I don't know, because was I wrong in feeling just last week that they were still just going to give the job to Mason even though they called it a competition? Trubisky has the higher contract numbers right now. And I know you have spoken on that before, where contracts will speak volumes in terms of who gets to start or not. I still think it's a competition, though. Yeah, I think Mitch has the upper hand now, though.
Yeah, I would agree, man. Mitch definitely has the upper hand. But I'm with you. I can't sit here and 100% say that Mitch Trubisky is better than Mason Rudolph. And to me, that's still part of the issue because we were trying to figure out, hey, man, if we don't even believe in Mason all the way, we should find somebody that we think is definitively better. That's why we said Jameis Winston. That's why we talked about Deshaun Watson. And we were like, man, if you're not going to go super high end like a Russ or a Rodgers, then those are the next tier of guys you'll want to go to. I mean, not including Deshaun, because we know he's in that same category in terms of being a franchise caliber quarterback. But it was like, man, you go with a Jameis Winston. Or even when we talked about Mariota, we said even though, it would probably still be close, at least Mariota gives you a lot more athletic ability than Mason Rudolph. But right now, I really can't tell you who's the better quarterback between Mitch and Mason. And like I said, that makes me feel really uneasy about the situation. But controlling what I can control, it has changed my perspective on what I expect from the team this season. Because listening to Kevin Colbert talk at the Combine, it had me feeling like, man, they're going to make all the necessary moves to actually be contending for a Super Bowl. Whereas now I see that, hey, man, they're trying to play the long game in a sense. They're building the foundation, getting the O-line right, getting some defensive help in here, roll with Mitch, see what it looks like, but also evaluate Matt Canada in this same process. And then from there, they either pull the hit the reset button on OC and quarterback next year, or they keep rolling with those guys for the next 2 years. Like I said, it just didn't feel like we were planning on evaluating those two guys on that level. I thought that it would be we're going to get all our ducks in order and we're going to, really make a run at this thing. Whereas now it's definitely feeling more like an evaluation season. More of a, hey, let's wait and see what Canada can do. Let's see if Mitch can look more like what he did in Buffalo versus the larger sample size of what he did in Chicago. And like I said, I just had to change my perspective on it, but I'm good now. I'm good.
Would we not still be evaluating Canada, though? Like, even if we brought in Watson?
I think that he would get covered up in the sense of how McCarthy was with Rodgers. When you have an elite quarterback, they rise above the coordinator play. They make the coordinator look successful as a byproduct of them. I mean, not taking a shot at Randy Fichtner, but think about him in this sense. Like, even though we didn't like everything about him, we still would take him over Matt Canada because that's when Ben was still playing at a higher level. It didn't have anything to do with Randy Fichtner per se being a great play caller, but because we saw how well Ben was playing under him, we even said last year, man, we would have rather he came back than roll with Matt Canada. So that's essentially what I thought would have happened if Deshaun Watson is here. If Deshaun Watson is here and he's playing like we know he's capable of playing, we'll be sitting here like, well, Matt Canada actually isn't half bad, man. I don't know if he drew that up or was that Deshaun calling it, but either way, we're going to roll with it. And that would have been the whole narrative. We would have joked about it on multiple occasions, but that would have been it. And Matt Canada would have looked a lot better. It would have had, the perception of him would have been a lot better. Whereas right now, that's what we're going to have to see. Like, man, can you turn Mitch into the Mitch from Buffalo? Can we get that? I just don't personally believe that he's capable of that right now, but I'm completely fine sitting back, waiting and seeing, baby. Yes, indeed.
Maybe Mitch overcomes Canada.
Hey, we'll see, man. Would that make him better than 7? Just asking for a friend.
No.
Oh, all right.